to another episode of The Wormhole. The Wormhole allows us to meet scholars and academics all around the world. I wonder who our mystery guest is today.
Hi, Sharon.
Oh, it's so marvelous to see Dr. Maro Salvador. And this episode takes us all the way to Canada, where she's located right now. But Canada is not her only home. So who is Dr. Maro Salvador? She is a Filipino-Canadian scientist, innovator, and educator. As a scientist, Dr. Salvador has created advanced materials for solar cell applications and pioneered the use of novel laser techniques to create industrial applications for nanomaterials. She holds a patent and has co-authored a large number of research publications. As an educator, she has trained over 4,500 teachers around the world and has inspired over 450,000 children. Yes, you heard me right. And youth to take interest in science through Pueblo Science. So Pueblo Science is an organization that she's a co-founder of and the executive director. Dr. Salvador is passionate about using technology to solve community problems. She was involved in creating computer accessibility solutions for patients at the Toronto Western Hospital and developed iron-fortified snacks for kids in the Philippines with the Grand Challenges Canada. Working with the Philippine Department of Science and Technology and the University of the Philippines, she also worked on a field diagnostic tool for safely harvesting crops. So you can see the vast array of experiences that she brings. Most recently, she helped deploy high quality and low cost solar lighting to the indigenous communities of the Philippines in collaboration with the Impact Center at the University of Toronto. So it's no surprise that Dr. Salvador is the recipient of the Ontario Centers for Excellent Social Entrepreneurship Award, the Canadian Society in Chemistry Research Presentation Award, the University of Toronto Institute for Optical Sciences Innovation Fellowship, and the MITACS Canada Fellowship. So I am so excited to get started. So welcome, Maros, to the Wormhole, which connects. I am located in Trinidad and Tobago, and you are currently in Toronto. So let's get started. So I'm going to start you in your childhood. So you are now a scientist, and you have experience across very different parts of the world. So as a child, did you want to grow up to be a scientist? How did that story go?
Well, thank you so much for having me here again, Shireen. And yeah, thank you for that introduction. So to answer your question, not really. I don't have a very good memory, and many of my science classes were all memorizing terms for the sake of the exams. And so I was good at math and met some accountants in my small town in northern Philippines who were good with numbers. So I thought I was going to be an accountant. But I did have a teacher in grade 6 who introduced me to a science fair project, and we created an anti-mosquito repellent. I thought that was fun and relevant, and I think that was the spark, the beginning of it all.
Okay, so that's really fascinating. That's why I love listening to the stories of how people come to be where they are, because that impact in your childhood, as you say, you can actually narrow it down to a particular incident with the science fair. So you went on to create Pueblo Science. Tell us what it is about and what motivated you. What does the organization do?
So Pueblo Science's mission, our mission is to advance science education in low-resource communities. And we do this by training teachers to use locally available resources to provide engaging activities in their classrooms. We also work with them in coaching their students on how to create community-relevant science fair projects. And the third pillar of the third activity of our organization is we work with a diverse group of youth. And so these are high school to university level youth. And we equip them with skills in science, technology, engineering, and math education, and hands-on experiments engaging with children, effective communication, and leadership. And during their time with us, these youth volunteers, they receive meaningful hands-on learning experience in terms of teaching and also by leading the organization in our events, in various events that we organize around the world. They also receive mentorship and coaching from our more experienced volunteers and STEM professionals. So as you mentioned a while ago, to date, we have actually trained over 4,500 teachers and directly impacted 450,000 students through our efforts.
That's actually really remarkable. I mean, that's almost close to 500,000 youths, and it's remarkable what an impact like that can make to the development of those countries. So what are some of the other countries? Is it limited to Philippines that the projects run in, or you said in other parts of the world as well?
Yeah, so we started in the Philippines because I am from there. My co-founder, Professor Santiago, is also from remote Philippines, and that was really our beginning. We wanted to make a change where we came from because nothing has changed there. But over the years, in particular in 2014, some of the teachers that we were training in the Philippines moved to Thailand, and so that's how we were able to bring our programs to Thailand. We met somebody from Guyana, one of our volunteers at the University of Toronto. She was from Guyana, and so she connected us to Guyana. And then Guyana basically referred us to Jamaica. And in between, we also went to Bolivia as well as in India. So those are some of the countries that we've been to. And we have a large number of programs that are also catered towards the indigenous communities here in Canada, as well as in the low resource communities around Ontario.
Miros, this is a marvelous story. And like you say, starting in the Philippines and how it has managed to grow across so many varied countries around the world. With your experience in starting with the Philippines and now across so many other countries and working in Canada yourself, do you see a huge difference in the kind of experiences, say, the youths get in their exposure to science in, or if I may say so, the developed countries and the lesser developed nations?
Well, certainly. Funding is a key issue in the developing world. In the Philippines, in particular, it's very low portion of the national budget is dedicated to science education and higher learning and research. Even it's even lower for that, and so you can see that. Like when we were in undergrad, we would need chemicals and it would take 6 months to years before that chemicals arrive. And it's also because we are far away from where those chemicals are from, but also the system in the country. We did get very good teachers in university. I went to a very good university. It's the best, I would say, the University of the Philippines. And so the education there is very, for at least for undergraduate, is very comparable to the other universities that I've seen around the world. But if you go to the rural areas, a lot of work needs to be done to build capacity for the teachers who are teaching the K to 12 level to be able to get that level that is quite competitive when and you know you have a solid foundation in basic science knowledge when you get to university.
Okay, so apart from all of the amazing stuff that you're doing, you are a woman in STEM, a woman in science, and that is, it comes with its particular challenges and an area that deserves a lot of focus nowadays, especially. So how has your experience been and across the different continents as a woman in science? Were there challenges that you experienced, or how has it been?
I've had, I talked to a lot of people and I realized that we all had very different experiences. fortunately for me, I never really saw that. Like when I was in university, most of my classmates were actually women. So we were all wondering, where had the men go? They were all in engineering and, computer science. And you can see that in the report of the UNESCO in 2015. And they said that gender parity has been achieved in the Philippines. But in the other disciplines like engineering, women are still lagging. And another important point that they pointed out is like the Philippines only has 189 researchers per million. That needs to be increased at least twice or more for it to be the normal and the prescribed number. And so there's a lot that needs to be done. And even if we achieve that gender parity, it needs to be sustained because it is very important.
It's so nice to hear that the balance, it's becoming balanced, as you say. And then, like you said, the question becomes, where are the men? So even at our university, at the University of the West Indies, now one hears terms like male marginalization, where the number of students at the university, actually the women outnumber the men. But you're quite right that specific fields, still women are quite a minority. Let me just throw this out at you. Although your education is in chemistry, how has it been with mathematics? Mathematics is an area in particular where sometimes you get that sense that boys seem to do better at mathematics than girls. Did you ever have any of that kind of experience?
I think in the developing countries, it's actually the other way because girls tend to be more hardworking early on. The boys are more playful. And so you can see women, like when we used to go to math quiz bees, it's a lot of young girls who are entering those competitions. And yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned it's the same situation in West Indies because yeah, we are told as well in Guyana every time we visit that they have a problem encouraging boys to follow a career in STEM. So it's interesting.
Yeah, these are interesting trends that, and as they vary across the developed and the other nations, as you say, in some of our countries. So when I introduced you, what really blew me away is the range of projects that you've been involved with regarding protein bars for children, things at the hospital, as well as working with crop harvest. It's such a broad range, and solar energy. I don't even know where to start. Tell us how you got involved in such a diverse amount of projects, which are all so useful. And which one is closest to your heart, if possible?
Well, you see, I was gonna go into med school, right? That was the plan when I entered university. And I met my co-founder, who became my long-term mentor, Professor Santiago, in undergrad. She made quantum mechanics really fun and practical. And if you've taken quantum mechanics, you know how hard and how abstract can that be. And so I took her as one of my co-supervisor for my undergraduate thesis, and that opened my world to the wonders of research. And so after my fourth year, I decided I was going to go and become a scientist. I wanted to find out more. I wanted to work more with lasers. I was so fascinated by light and uh, fast lasers at that time. And so that's what I pursued in grad school. And here at the University of Toronto, it's a fantastic university. You get to meet people with different interests, with different background. And so you've got all these opportunities to join projects that are close to your heart or that interests you. And that's how I actually built Pueblo Science. I just asked some friends. I'm like, okay, hi guys, do you guys want to join me? Let's go do some training and do some good in the world, starting in the Philippines. And 5 people joined. And so there are projects that are floating around like that in at the University of Toronto, in particular at the Impact Center where we started. They had projects specifically for the developing world. And, you know, for me, I got to this level, but going back, I always visit my family. I still have lots of family there. And you see that it would be nice to be able to make a change and be able to change the way people live there, improve it, make a positive change. And so, you know, when I hear those projects about putting lights where, you know, where we went, it was just actually 2 hours away from the city center of Palawan, which is beautiful beaches. Lots of tourists come there, but 2 hours away, there's no electricity because it's pockets of indigenous communities, and those people gets left behind. And so when I was asked to help out with this project to bring solar panels. You see, when I was in doing my PhD, I was actually working on materials to improve solar cells, and I was using lasers to be able to look at those materials. And you know, that's the process where you build that materials and then you pass it on to the engineers for them to build it to become a solar panel. So it's nice to see, to be able to see how the things you are working on, though it wasn't the materials that I was working on, but then you see what's the impact of it on the ground. Like I saw how for the first time the kids were able to come out after dark and play. They actually played boxing right there and then when after we installed those solar panels when we went there. And then the store, the little store that was servicing that small community stayed open because now there was light that people can see whatever he was selling. And then the members of the community were able to create their little livelihood projects like weaving a mat. And so they told us this is going to make a big difference in our lives because now I'm able to produce more mats, and so I can go and sell more in the market. And so really for me, it's, you know, being able to apply the technology, the science knowledge that I learned pursuing all these studies and see an impact at the community, that's worth it. That makes it for me. So I tend to go with projects like that. And so you can see from my bio that a lot of them are bringing science to communities, basically.
That's a really inspiring, really inspiring. As you were talking about it, I almost felt choked up. We take electricity for ourselves so much for granted, and the huge difference it can make in communities that don't have access to it. I mean, when you say the kids came out and started to play boxing and just extending the hours, I mean, it's like hundreds of years we treat as if the entire world has electricity, but that's absolutely not true. It also shows the marvelous wonder of science, that what you were doing. I think it's interesting how your story made a circle of what you're doing in the labs actually now come down and impact on to the ground. So I can tell that you have a special place in your heart for the solar energy project. What about the one with the, there's one with the, in the hospitals that you've been working on? What's that about?
So this one was a project with because I was, Pueblo Science was born at the Impact Center. And so you get all these scientists trying to create a product for the market. And so one of the people that I was working with, we had a project that basically is for gesture control. So we start, so you, it's a glove that you are able to wear and be able to interact with the computer. And so one of the projects that we applied that to with Breck Labs, was the name of the company, was working with patients with disabilities in the hospitals. And so they needed a better way to be able to interact with the computer with the minimum movement that they're able to do. And so we were working with them on that. Later on, the project was taken to be one of the controllers for virtual reality, but the pandemic hit us, and so we kind of folded the company. But it was a lot of learning. Maybe we'll be reviving that again now that you hear about metaverse all over the world, and so that's the next big thing in the internet.
Okay, it's really wonderful from really high tech end of things that you've been working on. And what I find fascinating listening to you is how the application goes across quite a spectrum, from the medical sector, as you say, to even with the virtual reality. That is like really cool. So Maros, one of the things we do on the Wormhole is that our audience really enjoy getting to know the person behind the science. And there are a few questions we ask to just get to know who Maros really is. So I'm going to move on to that part. And one of the first things I'll ask you is, tell us something about yourself that one wouldn't really guess, or hobby or something that you have.
Wouldn't really guess. I talked about not having electricity. So I grew up in the middle of the field. My father is a farmer. I didn't have electricity growing up. And so we had this kerosene lamp while studying. And so, every time I go and talk to students around the world, especially like the other day, we were working with kids in the urban poor areas of Manila, and you get to share that story, but they don't believe that anymore, right? That it's something that you wouldn't have guessed, but things can get better as long as you put the effort, you persevere. And so that's usually my message to them. About my hobbies, I love the outdoors, and so I love it when we visit Guyana. We usually go to the savannas. It's amazing. I'd love to explore more of the. I was in Trinidad and Tobago, and we went to look for the pink ibis.
So you've been to Trinidad.
I did because it's a stopover from to go to Guyana, and so I've connected with a few faculty at the University of West Indies. So it would be nice to come back, actually.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to come and see the ibises some more. Go down to the Caroni Swamp.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, so lots of outdoors all around this part of the world for you. Okay. All right. So Meros, well, to me, you have many superpowers, but if you could have any superpower that you could wish for, what would it be?
I'd like to be able to teleport. So, I could be teaching in West Indies, enjoying the beach right after we speak, and then still be able to come back and have dinner here. Wouldn't be awesome? Like, I'd be like a global citizen. That's always been something that I want to be able to be doing some work in various parts of the world. And what better way to have it if you can just you go like this, and voila, you're in Nepal, you're in the Philippines, you're in Guyana, you're in in Trinidad and Tobago. That would be amazing, especially it's winter now. It would be nice to enjoy some warm weather.
I can see you getting very excited at the idea of teleporting. So here at the Wormhole, we try to simulate it. At least we can meet each other across Canada and Trinidad and Tobago. So Meros, you never know. It might be a matter of time. Maybe we will be able to teleport someday.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh yeah, then I'll be like, where do I look for Meros? At the beaches, right?
Yeah, I would be having coffee right now.
Exactly.
Together, face to face.
Yeah, that would be marvelous. All right, so here's another one. If you could have a conversation with any person in the past, living, dead, who would it be?
Huh. That's a bit of hard question to ask, but I've always been I've always admired um, Mother Teresa. She did a lot of work for the poor, and she was perseverance. Her perseverance was very, very admirable with all the challenges that not one person could face, but she still did it. So that would be a person I would love to talk to and have some lengthy conversation with.
Yeah, definitely a very remarkable lady, and as you say, made such a difference to the lives of people in all those parts of the world. Do you have anything particular on your bucket list? Something that you gotta do one day?
There's a lot. For fun, I'd like to go skydiving. I'd like to be able to get to the top of Mount Everest. um, and just in terms of, I would love to see Pueblo Science being the leader of science education around the world, especially in the developing world. Like when we think of science training for teachers or engaging students, I'd love it if all the volunteers of Pueblo Science would be in all the corners of the world, and so that I hope we would be able to achieve with the help of all the members and volunteers of Pueblo Science, and we're working hard to be able to do that.
Well, you've definitely gotten off to an excellent start, and we look forward to following your career and all the marvelous things that you are doing. And I did enjoy you saying that you would like to be skydiving and at the top of the mountains. So really enjoy planet Earth in all its beauty. So one last thing before we wrap up for today. What would be your message to the world?
Hmm. Well, this is more like I think, especially with all the STEM professionals who are successful, I'd like to. It's not more a message, but what I'm trying to do is, uh, I'd like, and this is how I try to inspire the other people that I work with as well. Um, it would be nice is if all of us can become a social millionaire. And I define a social millionaire as someone who has made a positive impact in the lives of 1 million people. Wouldn't that be a nicer world if all of us are able to do that? And so I would like to encourage everyone to follow a path like that. Whatever you are enjoying to do, whatever career path you've chosen, I think we will have a better world if we think of the other people. 1 million people, if all of us can impact 1 million people, we would have a much, much better world.
That is such a beautiful and inspiring message. I love it. And I hope all our audience who have heard you say that. And with the advent of social media, I think we can try to strive for numbers like 1 million people. And like I say, you're really off to an excellent start. So, Meros, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, I'd like to thank you, Shirin, for inviting me. It's been fun. I love our conversation, and I hope to be in touch with you and be able to visit Trinidad and Tobago and perhaps work with you on some of our projects.
Absolutely. You beat me to it. I was now about to say what a pleasure it has been having you on the show with us today on the Wormhole. I have really enjoyed our chat, Miros, and you have an open invitation to Trinidad and Tobago to just bring your light and share it with us. It's remarkable how one touches lives in ways we don't even realize. So, folks, with that, it's wrapped from us here at the Wormhole with another episode of the Wormhole. I am your host, Sharon Hack, and signing off from none other than Studio 42, where we seek to find the answers to life, the universe, and everything. Bye.